welcome. Welcome in. We have people joining us and we'll start shortly. Welcome. We're letting people join us and then we'll start shortly.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome.
Indeed.
Okay, awesome. We got about 30 attendees. Maybe we'll give it just another minute for people to join. Okay, great. Ellen, would you like to officially welcome us in?
Yes. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. Compost Now, Commissioner Ted Terry's office, and Roots Down are here to join us. Food Well Alliance could not make it tonight, but I'm with the City of Avondale Estates, and we're glad that you could come and learn from us and talk to us. Let us talk to you a little bit about some key findings that we had from the Avondale Estates composting pilot program. If you guys want to, we'd love to know where you're coming from in DeKalb County. If you want to put where you're from, what part of DeKalb you're in the chat, we'd love to see that. Right now, yeah, that'd be great. We'd love to hear where we're finding our attendees from. That'd be lovely. Yay, lots of Avondale. Love to see it. Dunwoody's saying, wow, we've got folks from all over, so that's great. Thanks for joining us tonight. I think it's going to be a great program. I am Ellen Powell. I think we can go ahead and introduce ourselves. I'm Ellen Powell again. I'm the Creative Marketing and Communications Director from the City of Avondale Estates.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is David Paul, and I'm the Chief Impact Officer and co-founder of CompostNow. Excited to be here with all of you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Umrick. I'm also with CompostNow. I'm an executive assistant and project coordinator.
Good evening, everyone. Commissioner Ted Terry, your Super District 6 Commissioner. Great to be here this evening.
Hi, everyone. My name is Miranda Rupke, the Deputy Chief of Staff for Commissioner Terry's office.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Jamie Rosenthal from Roots Down, and so happy to be here this evening, and so awesome to hear from everybody tonight. Excited.
All right. Well, I am going to give a little bit of background on the program itself. So to jump right into it, the USDA has a program called the Community and Food Waste Reduction Cooperative Agreement grant program that exists to do exactly what we did in Avondale, and that is to create food waste diversion programs in communities, providing the funds to make that happen. This program has been something that has been spurring a lot of action around the country for community composting projects, making compost collection programs more accessible, making community composting sites more accessible, and making it possible for us to cycle nutrients in our community, ultimately to create soil health and support local farms and gardens and other edible landscapes. So we're very excited that we were able to put a grant proposal together in partnership with District 6, Ted Terry's office, as well as Avondale Estates, to make this program what you'll hear to be what we think is a resounding success. We, at the time, were this grant, believing that we had a unique kind of story to tell. Avondale Estates, of course, is a great community to do this in. There's a lot of kind of propensity to do these sort of programs and excitement to do these sort of programs. There was a plastic film pilot. I'm sure that some of you Avondale Estates attendees were participants in. And Avondale has always, I think, been a leader, one of the leaders, especially in the metro area, on this type of programming and sustainability initiatives. So when I reached out to District 6, Ted Terry's office, and we had an initial phone call on coming up with this idea to put this proposal and program together, it was an immediate kind of what came to Commissioner Terry's mind was Avondale Estates. This would be a great place to do it. So we then took it to Avondale and put the program together and brought in the other partners that we have here today with Roots Down and Jamie and Foodwell Alliance to really close the loop on the program itself. So from collecting the food scrap material, that's just one part of it. It has to be turned into compost, processed, and then ultimately we hope that it's returned to farms and gardens in our community. And we're doing that via our partners with Roots Down and Foodwell Alliance. So that's kind of the background in the program history.
Great, thanks, David. I'm going to go ahead and just give kind of a brief summary of the program timeline and activities to date. So after working on the application with all of the program partners and submitting in June of 2023, which feels like forever ago now, Avondale Estates got the good news that they were awarded the grant in December of 2023. Program activities were officially allowed to begin in June of 2024, and the program landing page and sign up was launched then. We had over 300 participants registered before the first week of collections in August, which was very exciting. Avondale Estates and Commissioner Terry's team both did a ton of program marketing with e-news, printed mailers, and door knocking in the early months of the program. To sign up, participants had to have an Avondale Estates address and be a single-family residence within the city limits. It was a rolling sign-up, and all program participants were given the 7-gallon container that you see in the picture to collect their food scraps in, and then CompostNow would tip them curbside once per week on their service day. All of the compost collected in this program was brought to CompostNow's facility in Grantville, Georgia, where it is processed into finished compost. In November of 2024, as kind of a second program push, we did open the program up to multifamily residents, so condos, apartments, and townhouses. And originally, the 12-month pilot was set to end in August of 2025 after 12 months. And the second phase of the program, the finished compost return in partnership with Foodwell Alliance and Roots Down, was set to begin this fall and close out the program activities at the end of May 2026. Go to the next slide. However, in April, after 8 months of the curbside pilot, the program funds were frozen by the USDA and all program participants were paused, and they were given the option to continue their service with CompostNow outside of the grant funding for $29 per month. We weren't given any guidance or communication on how temporary or permanent this freeze was going to be, and we were unsure of how to move forward with this program, knowing that the funds were uncertain. Go to the next slide. At the time of the pause, we had completed 8 months of the program, and there were 534 active participants, and 80,243 pounds of food scraps were diverted from the landfill, which is incredible. Over 20% of the participants chose to continue composting with the paid subscription. We know to go from a free program to paying each month is a really big deal, so to see that much participation was really wonderful. Go to the next slide. And even with the disappointment and uncertainty of the pause, we really didn't want this impact to be overshadowed, and we still really wanted to celebrate this program. And while we were discussing how we could celebrate and what next steps for the program might look like, after a 3-month pause, we got word from the USDA that the funds are officially unfrozen. So we are very excited to relaunch the program and finish out all 12 months of the pilot. If you are a current or paused participant, you will be automatically restarted, so you do not need to re-sign up. All of the details about the relaunch is going to be coming from an email from CompostNow later this week, so please just keep an eye on your emails. We were originally just expecting this webinar to be celebrating the program, but we're even more thrilled that it can be a relaunch announcement as well. Go to the next slide. And with funds reinstated, phase 2 of the program can also now move forward. So again, Foodwell Alliance couldn't be here tonight, but they will be returning finished compost to growers in DeKalb County in the 2026 spring growing season through their farm compost program. CompostNow has been working with them for a decade. They are an incredible organization and partner, and they provide tons of resources to local growers. One of those being providing finished compost at no cost to them. And we are very happy to have them and their impact be an important part of this program and closing the nutrient loop. I'll pass it off to Jamie to speak on Roots Down's works.
Hey guys, so we're going to be working with CompostNow and delivering compost. We have a library transition plan, and in that transition plan, we have worked on 2 pilot libraries, one in Chamblee and one in Clarkson. These are 2 finished libraries, complete with edible landscapes, native and pollinators, and very little to no grass at both landscapes. We're working with the landscapers that are currently working on this project, and we're going to be providing education and awareness on how to actually use the compost into their workflow. So we're going to be protecting and building the soils out at our public libraries, which is really exciting as an ongoing project with Commissioner Ted Terry's office to transition all libraries over to community zones safe of pesticides and herbicides and the loud and noisy backpack blowers. So we're excited about this project because soil is such an integral part of a landscape. It's in fact the foundation and building block of a landscape. So building our soils in DeKalb County makes me so happy, and couldn't think of a better way to bring this compost to DeKalb.
Okay. So shortly after the pause, we shared a participant survey just because we wanted to know how the program went, different reasons why people maybe joined the program, and just learning from the program and the pilot that was able to happen. So we'd like to share some of those results. We had about 158 participants complete the survey, so that's about 30% of all participants. Of those that completed the survey, we found about 80% cited multiple reasons they wanted to participate, with making an impact on the environment being the leading cause. Here's kind of a graph breakdown. This was a question where you could choose multiple reasons. So that is why some of these are higher. But as you can see, there were a bunch of different reasons, anything from making an impact on our environment, helping farmers, reducing waste and smell. Some people were just compost curious, had heard about composting and wanted to see what it was all about. Some people had previously composted, and some of our other responses were similar to previously compost, but they found the backyard compost that maybe they were doing was getting some animals, or perhaps they weren't able to compost things like chicken bones, which was able to happen in this program due to the food scraps going to a larger facility. We found that 89.2% found the program extremely convenient. 0% found the program inconvenient. We had one person just neutral, about 16 people found it relatively convenient, and then 141 found it extremely convenient. 90.5% found it extremely easy to separate their food waste, again, with 0% finding it difficult to separate food waste. And then 98.7% described their experience throughout the program as highly positive. There were only 2 negative or neutral responses, and that was primarily about communications versus the program itself. So as you can see, there was an overwhelming response, a positive response. We left some places for people to share their feedback or just general, what would you like to share about the program? And we found people love the program, from the excellent customer service to the feeling of doing good alongside their neighbors. Many were sad to see it paused. And so with that, we're going to move to more of a panel discussion, sharing some of our key takeaways from the program. Compost Now, folks, would you like to kick us off about maybe some key findings overall?
Yeah, I can kick us off just as a kind of operational level. I think this being Compost Now's first municipal curbside pilot and the first in the region, this was really just a wonderful learning experience. I think a lot of our learnings were not just in the operational shift for our team, so introducing a new model, new containers, but just in experiencing the mindset shift for participants from our standard doorstep subscription service and model to a free curbside program. We had conceptualized this for a long time. We had a good sense for how we thought this could and should be rolled out. And we knew other municipalities and programs have done this and done it successfully. So it was really just great to get the opportunity to pilot it and really learn what works and how participants really interact with it. I think one example would be that we didn't originally launch the program with any compostable bags or liners or countertop containers. And then after a really hot September at the beginning of the program, we received a few emails about pests and smells from participants. And as a composter, that's scary to get. We really wanted to get in front of that, as we know that can be a really big setback for our program if tons of participants are having that experience. So we really quickly sent an email with tips and tricks resource for how to keep your containers clean. We worked with BioBag to source countertop containers and compostable bag liners for every participant. We delivered rolls of bags and the countertop containers to all the current participants. And I think just in the future, those resources will be given at program launch and not retroactively. So I think that's just one operational thing we learned in the program specifics.
Yeah, and I'll jump in and provide some kind of zoomed out perspective. In the Southeast, where Compost Now primarily does this work, we're located across a few different cities and a few different states. And what we are seeing as it relates to the industry itself is that there are not a lot of publicly funded or policy tailwinds or low conditions with our landfill rates that allow for composting to exist and flourish. It's still a scenario in the Southeast, especially here in Georgia, where landfill rates are very cheap. So it's easy to just go ahead and throw our food waste in the garbage and not think twice about it, because there isn't a financial barrier there for us. And then there is no policy that's really driving the adoption of composting more widespread. So we're faced with a lot of headwinds to make a program like this permanent and scalable. So that is not to be a Debbie Downer. That is to say that what we were able to put together here for the pilot is even more important. So the traction that we were able to show, the partnerships that we were able to show, the participation that you just heard about. If you look around the country in our experience, and you look to the most progressive places like Berkeley, California, the participation rates in those places are not as high as you would think, because you kind of have a place where something's almost commonplace to the point where people aren't necessarily paying attention to it anymore. And composting takes attention from all the stakeholders, from the participants that are sorting their waste to do it correctly, to the compost collectors to make sure that the operation is efficient, to the customer support to make sure people the participants know what to put in the bin, to the city and the county. All of these stakeholders have to be aligned and participating very actively for a composting program to reach its fullest potential, and really not just suffer the fate of what we've seen happen with recycling, where this commodity becomes undervalued. There aren't businesses that can process the material locally, so we look to different markets, and it starts to really just affect the entire supply chain. compost material really needs to stay local for it to be effective. It can't travel very far. It's the heaviest, wettest, stinkiest part of the waste stream. So we need to keep this resource local, and we need to find the partnerships to make that happen. So in our minds, this was a demonstration of, yes, the South and the Southeast is behind, but we have the opportunity to put strong partnerships together, and we have the opportunity to pay attention and learn from what's happening around the country of what's going well and what's not going well. So the programs that we launch here can hopefully get off on the right step, and I think we did that with this program.
I'll just add, this is Commissioner Ted Terry here. I'll just add that it was really great when we were first starting the sign up program to go door to door and knock on the doors of folks. We kind of just sort of knocked on every door, assuming we didn't know if they necessarily signed up or not. And we encountered some folks who were like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing it. It's great." So that when Miranda said a lot of positive feedback, early on, people signed up immediately, and then I think we tried to kind of build it up. So we tried to get that threshold, and met some folks who didn't know about it, and just through the process of conversating with our Avondale residents, it was just really great to learn more about their situation and kind of how they approach food waste. I think some folks said, "Oh, I got a compost thing in my backyard, I'm good." And then I think Moreno was exactly right. Encountered a couple of folks who were like, "Yeah, I've been doing the composting, but it's not working out exactly how I want it. So maybe I'll give the bin." And then, the professionals at CompostNow a chance to, take it. And so I just wanted to, I really just give a shout out to Avondale Estates and CompostNow and all our stakeholders for just being really great partners and, working on what's, I think clearly been a very successful program. And then hats off to everyone at every level bothering Congress about getting that funding restored. So I think we sent an email and a phone call to every senator, our 2 senators and members of Congress to say, "Hey, release these funds." So it was great to finally get that good news, I guess, a couple of weeks ago.
I'll chime in from the city, reiterating again, we were thrilled to be approached about this as a city because it certainly aligns with our goals and the sustainability efforts we would like to be making. We loved being a part of a pilot and seeing like how this would work. We had great enthusiasm from our residents, so that was lovely. And I would say if other cities are looking to do this, as y'all mentioned, the partnership and was incredible. We worked with great partners who were able to make this happen and help us walk through the grant process, figure out how to do this correctly. CompostNow is excellent at the operations of making this work and at the communications of it. And DeKalb was fantastic. We're excited to see how it works with Roots Down and Foodwell Alliance too. But I think that was key for us is working with great partners who have great communication and resources to help and the operational know-how to make it happen. I think, we at first, when we just did single family, that worked out really well. We wanted to reach higher numbers. So it was lovely to pivot in the middle and be able to try out new things because it was a pilot too and expand to the multifamily. I think if you're trying this, I would encourage you to think about starting that early on in those conversations with those multifamily spaces. It went well when we were able to do it. So I think that was good. And I think we could have grown further with that. And note that grant management always takes more time than you think it will, right? I mean, that's something that you have to budget for and allow for. I think that is something we were lucky to have, again, great partners with everybody to make that work. But kudos. It was great. It was a great success from our point as well.
I would like to add a quick little tidbit here. So what I found really interesting was the multifamily and the apartments. Like this program, when we're thinking it's perfect for like the homeowner, I think that we kind of prove that it's also good for people that live in apartments. I think the narrative is really great that they're aiding and protecting in building up our natural resources. And I think using that story, and from what I've heard from Miranda and some of the feedback, I think that us piloting this in Avondale and getting some of the results and looking forward to seeing more results from the apartment complexes, I think there would be an amazing partnership there to gather compost and put it right back into the city and build our soil back. So I think that's exciting. So exciting that we got to work with them, and I can't wait to see what happens and what comes from it.
Awesome. Thank you. Throughout this program, we're also thinking about the future of composting. So maybe, what's next after the curbside pickup, after the program is entirely complete. Does anybody have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I'll weigh in on that one. So first off, just again, I want to say thanks to CompostNow and Avondale for identifying the grant opportunity and just kind of us call coming together and saying, hey, should we do this with not exactly certainty on how it would go down. And certainly didn't expect all those budget cuts. So that was a little wrinkle in it. But the Avondale is a smaller community, pretty straightforward. So from a logistics perspective, it seemed like a good pilot. And that's really what we were hoping to get out of this, is a pilot so that we could find lessons, learn, cost, logistics, receiving at the end of the chain, so that we could consider options to roll this out to more neighborhoods and cities in DeKalb County. One of the foundational things that is behind all of this is, number one, climate change is a problem. It exists. It's getting worse. I think the meteorologists who have been studying the summer climate catastrophes have reported that this is one of the worst flooding events that we've had in our nation in many, many years. And so now we're at we used to call it an inconvenient truth. Now it's just a catastrophe in waiting, and to the point where people are dying. And it's whether it's flooding or hurricanes or extreme heat, extreme cold. There's a foundational principle here that we have to do all that we can to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And we just have to do it in every single sector of the economy. I would encourage everyone to check out Project Drawdown, which is an organization as well as a book that really kind of lays out, if anyone thinks, well, how do we solve global warming and climate change? The scientists have done the research. There's a long list of things that people, corporations, and governments can do to bring us down below those carbon emission goals from the 1990s. One of those is composting. Some of y'all may not know this, but the Seminole Road landfill, which is in the very south of the county, is the 8th largest methane producing landfill in America. Okay, so just think about that. So all of the waste in DeKalb County, and sometimes people that bring it in from outside the county to the landfill, it is going in our landfill. We're burying it and doing the usual landfill stuff, but it is producing methane. Now, for the most part, we're either flaring it or capturing some of it, but it's still emissions. And if you live near the landfill, it's a little stinky throughout the year. And so there's an equity analysis and environmental justice analysis where the more food waste we can divert from the landfill, the lower the sort of the more nuisance smells from the landfill can be reduced. On top of that, great opportunity to address sort of this other issue. We want to protect the environment, but how do we pay for it? These things cost money. The great news about some of these renewable energy and closed loop systems like composting is that we can actually save money and also generate revenue. And I think later Miranda will talk a little bit about her trip to Athens, Clarke County, and their compost facility. I think that's a picture right there in the corner. But governments are making money off of this, right? When they do it the right way. So this is an opportunity for us to really kind of create revenue generating contracts with partners to ensure that we're reducing the methane emissions, preserving the landfill. I mean, we only have so much room in that landfill. So the more tonnage, thousands of pounds being diverted, that just means more capacity for the landfill that, quite frankly, if we ever lost that capacity, it would be a lot more expensive to take care of trash and all the stuff in DeKalb County. So we're guided by that principle. We have one big target for DeKalb County, which sort of will hopefully precede a larger rollout of composting countywide, and that's that we actually need a facility in DeKalb County. And that is something that for folks who either pay the tip fee or get residential trash service through DeKalb Sanitation, when we raised the rates a couple of years ago, we agreed as a county to open up a compost facility within 3 years. So the goal is by the end of 2026, we will have opened up a compost facility in DeKalb County, which would be the receiving source for hopefully future composting programs, whether they're for residential, commercial, multifamily, restaurants, the schools. We hear some of the schools are into composting on their own. And so that way it kind of creates hopefully a closed loop, create jobs, create sort of that closed cycle where we can take our food waste, process it, and then bring soil, back to residents, businesses, landscapers, master gardeners, our library landscapes, etc.
Wonderful, thank you. I guess I'll speak quickly about the Athens compost facility. I was able to go in 2024, and I know the CompostNow folks and maybe others are very familiar with this facility, but just going back to what Commissioner Terry was saying about the revenue aspect, they shared this, and I believe they share this monthly. They update it on their website about just their revenue that they're generating from the composting. This is from 2023. But I had a wonderful time visiting. As you can see, these are sifted compost piles, so more of the finished product. Their whole compost pad was on 4.5 acres at the landfill. This is kind of a larger image of just showing the multiple different piles and processes that it goes through. This is so I guess they do composting through static aeration. So this is that being done. And then while we were there, they also had food scraps being dumped, added to a pile. And it was actually amazing to, it didn't smell that bad. It smelled fine. It was fine to be there for, hour plus, I think that we were there. So I had a great time learning more about it and seeing the facility. Does anybody else have thoughts about the facility in general before talking more about the future of composting?
Yeah, I think I can just add that I think Athens is a great example because it's a city that's close by and it's here in Georgia and we can use it as an example. I would encourage anyone that wants to go take a tour to do that. They do a lot of education around it, so that is an opportunity. And of course, I have to plug the Georgia Composting Council, which has been newly established as of a couple of years ago. That's another way to learn more about the industry as a whole, get plugged into education opportunities, whether that be if you're interested in, actually operating a composting facility or down to just being, more connected and aware of the impacts of composting and at all scales. So that's the Georgia Composting Council. But then back to Athens, Clark County, I think that we also as communities and as a society need to start changing our cultural perception of waste and start thinking of it as a resource. And if we start thinking about these facilities and using language like a healthy soil center, we start to reframe this critical infrastructure that we have largely decided to cast as a out of sight, out of mind part of our daily existence. So, waste is something that we all deal with, something that connects all of us. Food is also something that connects all of us that we interact with every single day. These systems, like Commissioner Terry hit on all the talking points there. We need to create more circular systems in our society for multiple reasons. And just to make it super simple, if you like good food, there's a reason that we need to create healthy soil. So that's what I'll say about that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, I can talk a little bit about the future of composting in Avondale Estates. We're excited, as Kate had mentioned, to be reopening up, getting the funding back to restart the pilot program. So, in the immediate future, as Kate mentioned, the folks who had participated will be getting an email to be able to restart. And I think we will be restarting the first full week of August. Delivery of the bins will return next week. Is that right? Maybe, yes. So that will be happening to those who had participated. If you haven't participated and you're in Avondale Estates and you want to join this one, that first week of August, the registration will reopen so you can start joining in for this compost, which will go through the end of November. I think that's correct. Yes, end of November. So that will end the grant program for us on the pilot composting. After that, I know we have a lot of great support on this, and we as a city would like to be able to continue composting. We just have to figure out the funding. As David mentioned, it is a little bit tricky that with the cost of picking up our sanitation fees is still already remains in place because we have to serve every household, regardless of whether or not their trash reduction has gone down a bag because they're doing the composting as well. So that fee has not changed. And there's during this time, and as you mentioned, the tipping fees for our landfill don't really are still low enough that the actual cost and savings from that reduction in the amount of waste doesn't really cover the cost of the program. So we have to figure out that and try to figure out funding and determine if how we go about that. And so we're analyzing that and looking to our partners for other resources and brainstorming with them on that. I will say a little bit that it's difficult right now and we don't necessarily have a political appetite to increase fees. So we're when people are worried about the larger economy and how it's going to impact them, there's a lot of concern about that. So we have reluctancy to raise fees. And so we're trying to deal with that and trying to figure it out, but know that we are working on that. And here are folks that do really like our program and want to continue. We do too. More to come.
And just a quick follow-up from that, just so for full transparency's sake, we provided numbers to the City of Avondale of what it would cost for CompostNow to continue to provide these services at a scaled entire city level for Avondale. And that ended up being roughly about $100 a year per household. So that, breaks down to, roughly $10 per month. So it's yes, all of these things cost money. All of these services cost money. And yes, there are sensitivities around raising rates, but I will say that there are solutions for that. And just like Ellen said, there are opportunities to look into different ways to handle that as the city, goes through these next steps with it.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other thoughts?
And yeah, Maria, I'll add one more thing. So yes, I think Ellen makes a really good point. So we know that Avondale, Chamblee, and Decatur use our landfill because y'all have private, or I guess you have your own contractor, not DeKalb Sanitation. And so, yes, so when they pick up all the curbside trash, they take it to DeKalb Seminole Road landfill. Um, we were successful in holding off a tip fee increase for the cities, I think 3 years ago, Ellen. And so for my part, I am trying to maintain that hold. But yes, to the point about like, hey, we're like actually diverting tonnage away from the landfill. There should be some recognition of that. So my goal as the commissioner representing Super District 6, including Avondale, Chamblee, and Decatur, is yes, to continue sort of these conversations about, look, we would like to incentivize rolling out more composting, particularly in those three cities, because we know they take their waste to Seminole Road landfill. And can we, at the very least, hold the line, if not reduce the tip fees, so that we can, maybe meet in the middle. So if we get to, I don't know, $50 a year per resident, maybe we're on the right track. So these are opportunities for us to work with at least those three cities, who we know, use the landfill, and to hopefully incentivize kind of more of that citywide composting. And then certainly, the goal again is, and I guess, I don't know if we're in this section or not, Miranda, but, David can probably speak about logistics, but when you got to transport something in a big truck a long distance, it costs money, right? So this is really the vision of why we want to have a compost facility, right? It could be 4 acres, it could be 6 acres, whatever, we need to start off with in the county. And so if CompostNow or any entity only had to go 20 minutes down the road, as opposed to 2 hours down the road, hopefully that helps us sort of bend the cost curve to make these economies of scale more affordable. So we want to analyze that. We want to kind of ask the question of like, if there was like a county-wide assessment for composting that everyone would get. And, keep in mind, y'all, for folks who are in DeKalb County, recycling, everyone pays for recycling, but only about 50% actually get the blue bin. So just kind of think about it that way. So we've built in waste reduction measures into the countywide sanitation rate, recognizing that not everyone recycles, right? And we'd love to get more people to get the blue bin, but only about 50% actually get the blue bin. So we're already kind of subsidizing that element of the waste reduction stream. And again, like if we can generate revenue coupled with a countywide assessment, then we hopefully can actually bring it to a more reasonable number that folks would say, oh yeah, no problem, we can handle that, as a part of the usual sanitation assessment. So these are all part of the learnings that we're trying to get through this pilot to really kind of get to that question of, well, what would it cost to do this countywide?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Any other thoughts about the future of composting?
Yes, I totally forgot to mention. So just to be clear, we do compost in DeKalb County. It's just yard waste. Okay, so and Jamie's the food scientist over there. I mean, the soil scientist. So he can speak about what the difference is. But yard waste compost. So if you just put your little limbs and your little leaf bags on the corner, that's being composted, but it's a different type of compost compared to what is happening at Athens, where we're really combining all of the elements of the chemical cocktail. So I don't know if Jamie or David want to chime in about the science behind that.
Yeah, I'll just touch on it briefly, but basically to make really nutrient-rich compost, you need two important ingredients, and that is carbon and nitrogen. Carbon is all the yard waste and leaves and sticks that Commissioner Terry was just talking about is currently composted in DeKalb County. And then nitrogen is, of course, your food scraps. Combine the two together, and this biological process initiates where microorganisms are decomposing the material into a stable humus that is what we call compost. So currently, if you're using compost from DeKalb County, it has very low levels of nitrogen in it. It's better used for something like a soil conditioner. Um, it's not certainly not bad to put in your soil, but it's not the only thing you'll need. And compost with food scraps in it is a little bit more comprehensive in its benefits for plants. Maybe Jamie wants to elaborate on that at all.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I will suggest that we do. I'm looking at the questions, and they're coming in, so we should give some attention to those before we leave. But you hit the nail on the head, David. We have so much bulk of yard waste. If we were to mix the food scraps, that would be magical.
Great. Yeah, let's move into the Q&A. We have a Q&A feature on Zoom if you would like to use that. I've also seen some come in through the chat. If you would like to come off mute and ask your question, feel free to raise your hand and we can allow that to happen. But I guess to just kick us off while folks think about their questions, possibly raise their Zoom hand, we had somebody in the Q&A ask, we actually did not participate in the pilot because we have been subscribers to CompostNow for several years, and we were afraid the pilot wouldn't continue. We absolutely want this to succeed. Would it be more beneficial for us to join the neighborhood program, stay on the subscription service, or net neutral?
I'm gonna say you should. I think we have, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but we've got a great amount of data from this pilot program. I feel like we're good. If you want to continue with CompostNow, because we are going to end again at the end of November, I think it's probably, thank you for wanting to contribute to the success of the pilot program. But I think, I feel like we're comfortable with our data. Everybody else, yes, that we can say it is successful. That's my take on that.
Yeah, and I'll just add that it's a personal preference. It's a different model. Anyone that was a CompostNow member in Avondale Estates when this program launched, we wanted to make sure they knew it was a different model. It was going to be a curbside tip instead of us coming up to your doorstep with a clean bin. And it was also free. So I think it's just a personal preference of we wanted people to participate in this program to show that it had support. We didn't want this to launch and have if people don't sign up. So as a supporter of compost, we would love for you to participate in the program just to show, to be able to say at the end of it how many people we had and the support it had, and that we want to see these programs continue. So totally up to you. I mean, it will be a different model. Yes, it will be for 4 more months but you'd be getting a free service, and then you can onboard quickly back onto CompostNow subscription service. So yeah, totally up to you. I will just add to that many programs, like a lot of pilots, will only do like a 6-month pilot. So 4 months, we do have a lot of good data, but 4 months is still, we wanted to keep going with the program because there's still a lot we can learn in 4 months and get more people participating, advocate for the program more, and also see it out through a full calendar year too, because that's important too with the seasonality of things as well.
Great, thank you. We have a question in the chat. For those of us who don't live in Avondale Estates, what's the private process for CompostNow? And then a related question, if many in a neighborhood want to participate, is there a neighborhood solution that uses economy of scale to reduce the cost slightly?
Sure, I can answer that. Yeah, so for those that are interested in signing up for Compost Now, it's super simple. You can go to our website. It's just compostnow.org. Kate can drop it in the chat there. And it's a very easy process to sign up. You get a trial period to test it out. We deliver you a bin. We deliver you the how to compost kitchen magnet, what goes in, what doesn't go in, and then you start composting. And as you're composting, you're accruing finished compost that you can share with local farms and gardens in your community, like Roots Down is a garden partner of ours, or you can request that finished compost back at your home. So that's how that program works. As far as the economies of scale question, no, there is not really a way to kind of group together as neighbors. We have seen it hacked over the years. We've been doing this for 14 years. So there have been many iterations that we have seen and supported. So sometimes neighbors will sign up and get a couple bins at one home, and then one neighbor will bring material over to the other neighbor, and they will kind of share resources in that way. But what we kind of support and look for is the opportunity to create, if the neighborhood's really gung-ho about composting, is drop-off locations. So going to your city or your county and petitioning them to install a compost drop-off location in your neighborhood. And that way, if you have folks that are really excited about composting in your neighborhood and they want to bring everything to one centralized location, then we can collect it there, and that obviously drives economies of scale. But for us, if it's a neighborhood, density, of course, is great, but we still have to put a truck and a person out there. They're still going from home to home to home. So there really isn't anything that we can do cost-wise there.
Yeah, and I'll just add, and David actually shared with me the idea of kind of having the neighborhood-based bins where you could kind of just, walk or drive and sort of do the drop off there. We have the other idea we've been sort of toying around with is in Georgia, cities and counties are allowed to create special service districts to do special services. Usually it's like police, fire, parks. And so the research that we've been doing on special service districts applies to like sanitation services as well. Usually in DeKalb, it's sort of taken the form most notably as the speed bump petition process. So in DeKalb, if you want speed bumps on your road, you got to get all your neighbors, not all of them, you got to get, I think, 60%. And it creates a special service district. It's a taxing district. And it's basically everyone on that street is paying for these speed bumps and the maintenance of it. So that's basically the model of how a neighborhood could kind of band together through a petition process. We have not created that special service district ordinance, so there's no way to do it right now. But that's one of the ideas we've been kind of asking is like, how if we had a neighborhood that's like a bunch of us want to do it, and we can literally draw, parcel by parcel, depending on logistics, right, with some continuity. And potentially neighbors could just sign a petition, say, yep, I'll pay $25, a year or whatever it ends up being, depending on kind of the ratio, to get that special service. So that's kind of like one of the short-term solutions before hopefully the goal is countywide, because that's how we really get the economies of scale. Everyone's got to pitch in. But like I said before, it really benefits everyone. It helps generate revenue, reduce methane emissions, which, if you live near the landfill, everyone's in favor of that. It's like 20,000 people live near the landfill and they smell it every single day. And then it's good for the environment. It's good for our planet. This is all good stuff to have. So great question from Catherine.
Great, thank you. I saw that somebody also asked, how do new folks sign up? And then I saw that Kate said the sign up will reopen the first week of August, and then place that link, but we can place it again. We got a question in the question and answer saying, could there be legislation that could provide tax breaks for those who pay for CompostNow directly?
Yeah, I'll just jump in real quick that there is, so there's been a series of compost legislation that has been introduced over the past 4 or 5 years into United States Congress. So we're talking about legislation that would either fit into things like the Farm Bill, and one of those recent initiatives is to provide some sort of tax incentive for, I don't exactly know the mechanism, but for those that are purchasing compost services, whether that be from a company like CompostNow or whether that be an in-home composting system. I'll say composting system with quotations because sometimes those devices that market themselves as composting in 24 hours in your home, you throw everything in a bin. That's not actually compost. Just a quick public service announcement there. But you can, I think there is a future where we're going to see support in that sort of way.
Great. Um, and then we got a question talking about maybe some more of the numbers behind the program, saying, can you get us the figure/details on that estimate? This was about 15 minutes ago, but um, maybe the answer is we'll be happy to share those details when the program comes to a close.
Yeah, I mean, from our end, we shared that information with City of Avondale, so City of Avondale can decide what they want to do with it.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll be exploring this topic further. Look for it in upcoming work sessions and BOMC meetings. I'm positive. We'll let you guys know when those discussion comes about.
Great. Maybe time for one more. We had somebody say 3 decades ago, a commercial composting operation was initiated in the Marietta area. It did not last long. What was the cause of this Failure. Is anybody familiar with this?
Yeah, so there have been a series of facilities that have come and gone over the, you know, 15 years that I've been in Atlanta and doing this work. And I quickly opened that link that someone dropped for this facility. And I think I know this one in particular, but I will just more generally answer that oftentimes these facilities run into trouble when they end up taking in volatile feedstocks, putrescible feedstocks too much over their permit level, not designed correctly, poor operations plans, bad engineering, and probably almost foremost is bad relations with their surrounding community. So again, if we treat this work like waste management and it's the take as much in as we possibly can, uh, stink up the neighborhood, kind of try to snuff out anyone that's has any concern about it, then this isn't going to be lasting infrastructure. This isn't going to be seen as an asset in our community. It's going to be seen as this heavy industrial adversarial type relationship. So we've seen a lot of those facilities come and go because they've treated it like that. I will say, I think we're in a new era of compost operations, and there's a lot of great operators out there. There's a lot of advancing technology that's helping these facilities run more efficiently, and just an overall professionalization of the industry that we've seen and that we've been a part of.
Great, thank you. We keep getting questions coming in, but I know we're at almost at 7. Do y'all mind if we just answer a couple more?
Sure.
Okay. How are other communities incentivizing participation? Are there, for example, any other communities where local merchants sponsor lottery type programs where people participate the whole year are entered into? Maybe they could provide something that incurs little marginal cost or acts as advertising to provide incentives at an acceptable cost to merchants.
Yeah, I can think of some really like hyper local examples where in smaller communities where I've seen things like an opt-in additional fee on top. So like, when you go and you swipe your credit card and there's a processing fee, merchants can sometimes add an additional fee for a myriad of things, and that's an optional thing that consumers can opt into. I've seen one where it is for composting services or other sustainability services like recycling in the community. Again, that's a pretty small scale example. I think on the larger scale, seeing municipalities that do a pay as you throw program, Decatur is, I think, our closest example of that. Pay as you throw being uh, an interesting way to incentivize composting and recycling because you're reducing the quantity of trash that you have as a household, and your cost as a household is based on how much trash you're putting into that part of the system. So you're paying for your trash, and usually the composting and recycling is uh, less than that or cost neutral. So you're incentivized to compost and recycle versus landfill.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, Dave, you might be referring to a zero food print. It's kind of, or sort of merchants, sort of this kind of
Yeah.
idea, sort of just a little 1 or 2 penny or something on top of every transaction that would offset like a coffee shop or a restaurant doing composting. I think we have a couple of restaurants in Avondale that do composting just on their own, like Banjo Coffee. Like I think I've seen them. I think I've seen their 3 bins for like 2 years now, I want to say, and which is great because like I always watch people kind of be like, which bin do I put it in? So they're always learning when they're doing it. But I don't know, David, do you have any stats on like residential versus commercial? Like I thought I read somewhere that like a lot of the food waste is happening at like the commercial sort of level. But I can't remember the exact stats of residential household versus like cafeterias, restaurants, schools, things like that, of being like big food waste sort of producers.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers right off the top of my head, but I can anecdotally just say that it's obvious that our commercial generators of food waste have a lot more material than that the household. We see on average on a weekly basis a household has about 10 pounds of food scraps per week, and that can be a household up to four cooking pretty regularly. But the commercial generators, I mean, if you look at the landscape of food waste, this goes into food manufacturing as well. This is something very prevalent in our state. Uh, there is a lot of industry that is processing food into what we consume. It's getting packaged, it's getting distributed into our grocery stores and our places of consumption. So there's a tremendous amount of food that comes out of the institutional and commercial sectors.
Yeah, thank you for that, David. And I just want to let everyone know that that's on my mind and our mind as well as we think about the future of composting, because because it's all going to the Seminole Road landfill eventually. So where can we slice, diverting residential? Where can we slice getting school food waste? And so we want to, find ways either through updated ordinances or the pay as you throw sort of model, and or just businesses kind of opting in to saying, yeah, we're going to voluntarily agree to have sort of that third bin, or the kitchen just knows to scrape the food waste over here instead of over there, and just again like try to carve off as much tonnage as food waste as we can from the landfill into these systems that are going to be much more beneficial for everybody.
Awesome. And then maybe one last question to close us out. It's really great to hear that this program may go countywide. Is there anything those of us who have loved this pilot can do to help facilitate?
Yes, email your county commissioner. Because the landfill and DeKalb sanitation is the DeKalb County. The Board of Commissioners set the rates. We set the policies. So this is all this. The pilot is really good information for us to help inform all 7 commissioners on the future of our food waste system in DeKalb County. And whether you're talking about biosolids, one of the little spreadsheet columns from that Miranda showed is biosolids. That's the pressed the squeezed out shit from our wastewater treatment plants, our sewage treatment plants. Right now, we are taking all of that shit to the landfill. Imagine if we took food waste biosolids into a composting program. I mean, this is all good stuff. So, and we're paying for it. Okay, let me be clear. Like, we are paying for this. We had to spend an extra $3 million to upgrade our leachate system at the landfill because we were getting a lot more liquid into our landfill. Landfills can't have, they need to have less liquid. Okay. So food waste biosolids being diverted actually just makes the landfill better. It makes that lasagna thing they do better and more efficient. But when you're talking about $3 million every couple of years to like improve, upgrade the leachate system, I mean, that's real money, right? That's a lot of money. So, we're looking at this, holistically. We want to, as David was talking about, rethink the way we look at waste. Waste can be an asset, not something you bury or just put to the side, out of sight, out of mind. This is something that has tremendous benefits for our environment and for our county revenues. These are this, y'all know me as the green commissioner. I care about the environment and I want to save us some money. Okay, those two things are not mutually exclusive. They go hand in hand.
Great, thank you. Well, with that, thank you all so much for attending. We did record this, so we will share the recording, and feel free to ask any questions that maybe we didn't get to. Ellen, would you like to officially close us out?
Sure. Again, thanks everybody. We look forward to continuing restarting our pilot and continuing our learning and thinking more about compost for the future. So stay in touch. Thanks.